Welcome to Coach Bennett's podcast, where every run has a purpose, where kindness is hardcore, where this is about running, and this is not about running, where every starting line is a finish line in disguise, where rambling still gets you where you need to be, where pineapple will never ruin your pizza, and the sodas, adult and not adult kind, are always cold, and where there is room on the starting line for everybody. I'm Coach Bennett. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Let's get started. Welcome to episode 109 of Coach Bennett's podcast. 109er. That's right. This one is called It's Okay to Not Be Okay. That's right. It's okay to not be okay. Now listen, I was going to talk about something else this week. I just got back from a trip to France where I got to see and be a part of the Breaking 4 attempt by the great Faith Kipyegon. And that's what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about that, what it means for the sport, what I thought went great, what I thought could have been improved upon. I was going to tell you about what it was like to be in the crowd, the vibes, the whole thing, but that's not what I'm going to talk about because I keep getting messages from everybody saying they're having a hard time running with, as they put it, the world falling apart, everything going wrong, being frustrated and pissed off with what's going on right now, all of these different things. So you know what? I said, we'll talk about Breaking 4 some other time because it sounds like people are breaking themselves. So I wanted to talk about how it's okay to not be okay. And I also wanted to talk about how you can use your running to help you be okayer, or at least okay, or more okay. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I would rather not talk about this in the sense of it not being needed to talk about. But guess what? That's where we are. So that's what we're going to talk about. So if you're out there and right now you're pissed off or confused or frustrated or sad or mad, or if at any time you're going to be feeling those things, which guess what? You are. That's how it works. If you want the stuff that is associated with the pendulum swinging the other way, like joy and happiness and confidence and peace and clarity, well, sometimes, like I said, the pendulum's going to swing in the other direction, and it seems like for a lot of people, it has swung in that other direction. So that's what this is about. And I'm going to just reiterate what the title of this is, which is it's okay to not be okay. I think we have always been living in a world where there's a celebration of being happy, and people get uncomfortable when people are unhappy. There is an embrace, an ease, an acceptance of when people are motivated, inspired, and confident, and all of those great things that we want to be. Don't get me wrong, we want to be those things, and I think it's great that we celebrate them. And then when people are frustrated, unconfident, suddenly it seems like everything is awkward, right? Now, I have a luxury of working in sports, so I'm constantly around people that are unconfident or frustrated or upset or angry, except in sports, it's a safer space to feel those things. It's a safer space to have your heart broken, to be devastated, to lose, to fail. When we get out of sports, we somehow make it weird. And I think it should not be that way. I think we should be just as accepting of these feelings. We should be just as open to feeling these feelings outside of sports as we are inside of sports. You see somebody lose a game and they get upset, and there's understanding there. We see when people are dealing with the nerves and they're scared and they're fearful. We take it upon ourselves, if it's someone we know or someone we're associated with, to support them and to help them and to try to help them gain the confidence they need, the courage that they're going to desire to have, or we try to give them stories about how when we had to be brave, and to be brave you have to be afraid. So that's so normal when it's in the world of sports, and in some cases the arts as well. Suddenly when it's the real world, it's like people don't know how to deal with it. And as a result, the people that are feeling it don't feel comfortable admitting that they're feeling, what they're going through. And yeah, so I'm going to call straight BS on all of that. Let's stop doing that. Let's be open and honest about how we're feeling, how we're doing. So I'll tell you what, this is about running. This is not about running. If you are open and honest about how you're feeling, you're going to run better. Now, why? Well, because you're going to be able to adjust as needed. You're going to be able to embrace who you are in the moment. Your expectations may change in terms of maybe metrics in some respects, but you can still demand the best of yourself regardless of how you're feeling. You're just going to be adjusting for how you're feeling. And if you can consistently do that with the understanding, putting yourself into a certain context of how you're feeling, what you're expecting from the efforts that you're giving, you're going to be a better teammate to yourself. And as a result, you're more likely to come back to another starting line. Imagine if we brought that into the rest of our lives. Yeah, beyond the finish lines, before the starting lines that lead to runs or whatever sport you may be a part of. I'll tell you what, we'd be living better lives just like we're running better runs as a result of just being better teammates to ourselves. So I just want you to understand that if you are experiencing anger, frustration, confusion, sadness, despair, okay. Just be okay with that. It's okay to be those things. A lot of times we think it's not okay to feel these things. It's only okay to be totally okay or better than okay. It's just not true. And from a coaching perspective, I would much rather know that you're not feeling great, that you're not doing okay when I ask, how are you doing? Because when I know how you are honestly doing, I can truly coach who you are and not some fake version of you, some fraudulent version of you. Because that's what it is when we lie about how we're doing. We are creating a version of us that is not true, that is not authentic, that is not legitimate. And an unauthentic, illegitimate version of us will never perform as well as the legitimate, authentic version of us. So I just went on like a 6-minute ramble, and I apologize for nothing. So one of the things I want to talk about, though, is when you're feeling these things, okay, when you're not okay, these are stressors. These are stressors. Totally normal. And what I want to bring these things up, and I want to talk about stress a little bit here, because stress is a part of life. Stress is associated with us as human beings. For as long as we have been intelligent animals, we have had to deal with stress. It most famously shows up as, fight or flight. Like, what am I going to do? Oh, I feel stressed. Should I stand my ground or should I run for my cave? And this was a survival mechanism. Okay, so it is natural to have stress. Okay, and I've done runs before and podcasts before about stress. You've heard me talk about it. The danger comes in really chronic stress, that long-term stress. When you're dealing with anxiety day in and day out, when you're frustrated day in and day out, when you're angry day in and day out, when you're sad day in and day out, and what that can do, that chronic stress, that consistent stress, it can wear you down. It can wear your immune system down. It can raise your blood pressure. It can cause disruptions in your sleep, which means you're not recovering as well as you could, because when do you recover best? When you're sleeping. You can lose your appetite. You can get headaches. You can get stomach aches. It can show up as pain in your body. You can lose focus and concentration. All of these things can occur if you have chronic negative stressors in your life. Now, here's the thing. Running is a stressor in your life, but there are positive stressors and there are negative stressors. And there are positive stressors in your life that can become negative stressors if you change what their purpose is, or if you manipulate what the outcome is, or what your relationship is with that positive stressor. And absolutely 100%, running can go from being a positive stressor to a negative stressor if you allow it. But remember, it's your relationship with running. And when you are dealing with negative stressors in your life, anger and frustration, anxiety, depression, things like that, you're going to want to have those positive stressors remain positive, which means you may have to adjust your relationship or adjust how you are relating to this positive stressor so it is a help and not a hindrance to you. I'll give you an example. A lot of times when people have a tough day, they go out for a run because they just consistently go out for a run. Now, normally, on a good day, on an okay day, they go out for a run. They've got a healthy mindset. They're going out there. Let's just say it's an easy run. They feel good. The effort's matching. Everything's working. They come back. They feel elated, like the endorphins are rushing through. They just feel good. They feel confident. They feel like they've got a little bit more clarity in their life. Whew, what a great run. Now, on a tough day, you're worn down. Maybe you're lacking some ability to focus or to concentrate. There's definitely some of your energy reserves have been used up being anxious or frustrated or angry or nervous all day long because associated with those stressors is probably a higher heart rate. Now, a higher heart rate for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours or 2, 3, 7, 15 days in a row is going to wear you down. But of course, you don't have a healthy mindset right now. So you go for a run. Your expectations are what they would be if everything was okay, but things are not okay. And you're not asking yourself, are you okay? And then making adjustments because you're not okay. So instead, you head out there with the same expectations, the same demands on yourself that you would have when everything is okay. So what happens when you're out there on the run and the run don't feel okay? You beat yourself up even more. Now you're not only dealing with a weakened body, you now have a terrible teammate jumping in and pounding on this weakened version of you, which is not what you need. So you need to pay attention to those positive stressors in your life. And the only way you can take advantage of those positive stressors in your life, like running, is if you first acknowledge how you're doing. And in order to do that, you gotta be honest with yourself. You have to be. How am I doing? Not so good. Okay, that's not a sign of weakness. Telling the truth is always a sign of strength. Listen, it shouldn't be a surprise that the people that lie the most in your immediate life or the people that you hear in public life that lie every single day, guess what? They're the weakest people in your life because they can't handle telling the truth. It's too much for them. They can't adjust. They can't change. So the easiest thing to do is to just lie and lie consistently. So just remember, it's a sign of weakness to lie, not a sign of strength. And when you have someone, again, in your private life or that you listen to in the public realm that lies consistently, repeatedly, just remember every single time they lie, they are just saying to you, I am weak. I am weak. I lack strength and courage and integrity and character and a bunch of other things. But just an important thing, because I want you to take that moment when you are being honest about how you feel to also acknowledge that you have strength. Because a lot of times when we're dealing with chronic stressors in our life, we can feel weak. And yes, we are in a weakened state, but we still have strength if we can be honest about how we feel. And one thing I want you to do is not diminish why you feel these things. So I've talked about don't diminish how you're feeling. Like don't diminish that you're frustrated. Don't diminish that you're anxious. But also don't diminish why you feel these things. Because a lot of times what we do is and I don't know if it's social media or what, there's like this apology circuit that we go on when we say, I'm really frustrated, but it's not that big of a deal because there are bigger things to be frustrated about. Or, I'm really sad about what happened. And it could be, your team lost a game, or maybe you lost your job, or maybe you lost out on a bid to buy a home. I don't know. And we say, but, I know it's not, as bad as what other people are going through. Listen, there's always people that are going to have it worse than you. That doesn't mean you have to diminish what you're going through. It doesn't mean you have to apologize for being sad because there's some type of sad metric that you feel like you're not measuring up to. So I'm just letting everybody know that if you're dealing with frustration, sadness, depression, anxiety, anger, don't diminish why. I don't need to hear that. It's the same thing when people tell me, like, I've run a marathon, but I've only run X time, or I run a couple days a week, but I only run for this many minutes. Don't do that. Don't do that. No, nobody told you to put yourself down when you introduce yourself. I don't want to hear that. You run a couple days a week, badass. Let's start from there, okay? If you want to improve upon that, that's great. But you don't want to improve upon it because what you're doing sucks. You want to improve upon it because you want to get better. All right? Is this semantics? Yeah, but it's also a very different way of thinking. So if you're someone who's constantly saying, yeah, you know what? I've been dealing with some sad stuff in my life, but it's not as sad as what... Listen, you can be an empathetic person and still go through some stuff. Okay? In fact, having empathy for other people is a sign of strength. Straight, stone cold, badass strength. But empathy does not mean you have to diminish what you're going through too. All right? I just want to put that out there. All right? That's just super important because there are a lot of reasons always in this world to be stressed out. Okay, the world comes at you fast, it comes at you hard, and it comes at you cold sometimes. And guess what? We're all dealing with stuff. We're all dealing with stuff. And sometimes, you know what? The stuff you're dealing with, not that big of a deal. Sometimes the stuff you're dealing with, you're like, yeah, you know what? Things are going pretty good right now. That's fantastic. I'm very happy for you. I'm always happy for people that are happy. But I'm also open to the realization that people can be holding on to multiple things at once. They can be feeling multiple feelings at once. You can be really sad and be laughing. It's possible. How do I know that? Because I've been incredibly sad before, and I've laughed with friends. I've been incredibly happy, and I've been devastated by hearing something. You can have multiple feelings inside you at one time. I just want you to know that, be aware of that, and don't think that you're not allowed to feel multiple feelings. Don't think that one diminishes the other. You have an infinite amount of space inside you to feel all the feelings at once. We are complicated machines, all right? Complicated animals, complicated beings, however you want to describe what we are. We are super complicated, which is why I love running, because running is not complicated. Runners are complicated, but running is not complicated. Anyway, all right, let me just keep moving on, all right? So one of the things that you want to do, all right, I think, which will help beyond acknowledging how you're feeling, beyond acknowledging it's okay to feel what you're feeling, beyond acknowledging that you can feel multiple things, and beyond acknowledging that being truthful and honest is a sign of strength, is to make sure you are using those positive stressors in your life in a way to negate the negative stressors in your life, or at least to alleviate what is stressing you out in your life, or at the minimum, to at least have something that you can at least contrast with some of the negatives in your life. Going for a run, not beating yourself up, and maybe it's half the distance, half the duration that it normally would be, is a victory when it could have been an excuse to beat yourself up. Or it could have been something that you said, you know what, I'm low on motivation, I'm low on inspiration, I've got a lot going on, and you know what, I don't deserve to go for a run. Like that, this is a mindset that we do. We can put ourselves into emotional caves and say, I don't deserve this because I don't feel great. Well, this is where you have to be that other teammate, that other friend, that other coach beyond yourself and think, what would help this person I care about? Well, it wouldn't be taking a positive stressor and turning it into a negative stressor, going for a run and using it as an excuse to beat yourself up. Maybe it's not even going for a run. Maybe it's getting outside and moving. But it's also celebrating that. It's also acknowledging that you moved, you crossed a starting line, you accomplished something that even in a time of low motivation, low inspiration, you did something. You got to the starting line and you crossed it. So make sure whatever those positive stresses are, and again, I'm harping on running, but it could be music. I'll tell you what, when I get down, I listen to sad music, like really sad music. That's like kind of my thing. Like I will just listen to it when I'm angry. I will listen to really, really fast, hard music. And it's not so much so I can rage, but sometimes it is so I can rage. And this is the thing. Most of the time it happens in the car, but I'm not rage driving. I'm rage singing, but I'm driving very kindly and intelligently. So just don't get in the car if you're like a rage driver because you're in a bad mood. Like just stay off the road. I'm like the opposite. Like I will still drive like cool. I'm a cool driver, but I will be rocking out hardcore with my music. A lot of people like to go the opposite. When they're down, they want to listen to, kind of upbeat, happy music. I'm like the opposite. Like if I'm down, I'm going to feel it. I'm going to marinate in it. You know what I mean? I'm going to feel all the feels, even when all those feels are like dark eels. That's a gross kind of visual. But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. And when I'm angry, I'm going to be angry. I am. I'm just not going to be angry in a way that is either going to hurt myself or others. That's not what I'm going to do. And when I understand that this is a feeling, that it's a reaction to something, that it's me trying to process something, that it's not, then I'm not saying I have total control, but I have way more control of how I'm feeling. And I'm okay with it, and I'll go with it. So just something to think about. Another thing is I'm a big proponent of community, especially when you're stressed out, especially when you're down, especially when you feel defeated or frustrated or angry. Bring that community around. And this is where you really have to think about who in your community is a positive influence in your life. You don't want the toxic people around, or you don't want the people where maybe their skill set is not to help someone who needs help. We have people that we can count on and people that maybe we can't count on that are in your life, and they're not a toxic person in your life. They're just not someone you're calling in the middle of the night when you need some help. But think, who are those people and have them around. They're the ones that are going to want to know how you're doing. And again, if you just remove yourself from yourself and imagine, instead of talking about yourself and what you need, you think about how you would help someone who's in need that you care about, you're going to really be able to figure out who in your life you want around. And sometimes it's going to take some work from you to be a part of and not apart from that community when things are not going well. I'll give you an example. So when athletes would get hurt when I was coaching them, which was rare, by the way, I've got to say, it was rare, but there were a few injuries when I was coaching high schoolers. And the tendency at that level was to tell the athlete, like, listen, go get healthy and then come back when you can start running. And that was the opposite of what I would do. I made the athletes show up every day at practice. I wanted them around the team. In fact, I thought it was more important that they were around the team when they were unhealthy, injured, than when they were healthy. I mean, granted, I wanted you to practice every day when you were healthy so you could run faster, so you could get stronger. But I also realized that you could lose way more fitness. And I'm talking about not just physical fitness. I'm talking about mindful fitness, emotional fitness, when you were away from the team and unhealthy or injured than when you were away from the team and healthy. So it was really important for me to keep people around the community. I wanted them to still feel like they were a part of this and not apart from this. But the tendency is, as humans, that when we feel there is a weakness or something wrong or not right, not perfect, not okay, to remove ourselves from those communities. And that's the opposite of what we should do, which is why being honest is so important. Because if you're honest with yourself, if you're honest with your coaches, if you're honest with your teammates, if you're honest with your friends, if you're honest with those people that are mentors to you, and you can say, I'm not doing so good, then they can say, hey, here's the invitation to stick around. Because sometimes you need the invitation. When you're healthy, you don't need the invitation because you feel like you belong. And when you're not healthy, or when you're hurt, or when you're frustrated, or when you're stressed out, you feel like you do not belong because you think everyone around you is perfect, and nobody's perfect. So just stay a part of those communities that you've built. Super important when you're dealing with those periods of time when you're not okay. Now, this seems like a strictly physical one, this next one, but it's not. Fueling and hydration, super important. Super duper important. When things aren't going right, we tend to stop doing all the little things. And two of the things we stop doing are fueling the right way, hydrating the right way. Now, if you want the energy, if you want the ability to recover and heal, and I'm not just talking about physically recovering and healing, if you want the better chance to recover and heal emotionally, you need to be fueled and hydrated. And what happens is we can lose our appetites. We can stop thinking about those little cues that normally pop up, like I'm getting thirsty or I should be drinking water because I'm doing work. And oddly enough, when you're stressed out, you have an elevated heart rate most of the time. Your body is working and working hard, usually for more hours than when you're healthy. You may be doing a 90-minute run. That's a long time to work. It's a long time to get that heart rate up, right? You think, I got to fuel, I got to hydrate in anticipation of and after that hard workout. And yet, when you're stressed out and you've got an elevated heart rate for 136 hours in a row, what we do is we say, I don't need to eat, and I don't need to drink, I don't feel like it, and I don't feel right, and something's wrong with me, and I don't need to do this anymore, and I don't feel like a runner, I don't feel like I'm a part of this team, and you stop taking care of yourself. In the exact moment, you really should be taking great care of yourself, extra care of yourself. So it seems like a small little thing, and it may not be something you want to do because you may feel like I don't have an appetite right now, or I don't want to have that glass of water. Do it. Be proud of the fact that you did it, and you will be aiding your recovery. Okay? You will be aiding the healing process that is occurring. When you're stressed out, you need to heal. You need to recover. You need to deal with these things. And one of the ways you can do that is making sure you're doing some of those little things like fueling and hydrating. Another thing is entertainment, baby. I talked about how I take advantage of music. Listen, find the things in your life that entertain you. And I'll tell you why. I'll give you an example of a stressor that maybe we don't associate in the same way as we would the things I've been talking about today, like those negative stressors like frustration and anger and things like that. But pre-workout, pre-race, we can get very stressed. We can get nervous, which is a stressor without a doubt, and can be a negative stressor if it's an induced nervousness for a long period of time, for hours and hours before the workout or the race. One of the things that I would tell athletes to do is let's watch a great movie. Let's watch an engrossing movie. Do you have a book that you love? You know, these are the things that can take your mind to a different place and give you a reprieve. So being around people, that community, can act as a reprieve, like a vacation from some of these negative stressors. But so can movies, so can plays, so can concerts, so can music. These are the things that entertainment, the arts, theater, these are things that can entertain you, but it's also giving you a break. And I'll tell you what, a run with a group or a run on a great trail, these can also act as forms of entertainment if you've got the right mindset. So think of those things that you can rely on. Maybe it's comedies, maybe it's horror movies, whatever it is that can give you a little bit of a break, because we can start to micromanage some of these stressors. We can start overthinking some of these things that are causing us to stress out. So entertainment's just another thing, all right? And I'm a movie buff, and I like to read, and I love music, so it works for me. Hopefully it works for you. And I've said this already, but I'm going to say it again. Feel the feelings. Don't fight the feelings. It's just you're fighting something that you can't win when you try to fight your feelings. If you're sad, you're sad. You don't solve being sad by fighting it, by ignoring it, by pretending you're not sad, by diminishing what it is that made you sad. You deal with it. It's a process. Being angry is a process. You can handle these things. You can make sure that you're not allowing these things to put you into negative situations or take negative actions? Absolutely. And I think thinking through some of those things is like dealing with a bad run. I tell people all the time, like, don't limit your best runs to the runs that go their best, like your furthest or fastest, or I felt my greatest. No, you have sucky runs that could be your best runs because of the way you handled those runs. And I think what we need to do is understand that when we're down, when things aren't going great, when we are stressed out, when we are frustrated, when we are sad, when we are despondent or devastated, when our heart is broken, sometimes that is us at our best. I'll tell you why. Because one, we're feeling real things. Okay? I used to tell my athletes that when your heart breaks, it's not a sign that something is broken. It's a sign that something is working. Okay? And it's the same thing. There's nothing wrong with you for being upset. There's nothing wrong with you for being pissed off that there are cruel people in this world. Just remember, okay, that if you have this feeling right now that things are falling apart, that the world is breaking apart, that, someone's got to put it all back together. Somebody's got to fix it. And the best thing we can do is be prepared to put it all back together. Be prepared to fix what we can fix. Be prepared to put a pen to paper, vote, go for a run, volunteer, teach, whatever we need to do to repair, to recover, to heal this world, this community that we're in. And the best way you can do that is by taking care of yourself. There's a reason why on a plane they tell you to put your mask on first, so you can get your oxygen first before you help someone else. And the reason why is that if you don't get your oxygen on your face, if you don't help yourself first, you won't be able to help as many people as you could have. So take care of yourself so you can take care of each other. And if you're feeling some of those feelings I was talking about, if you're stressed out, that's okay, because it's okay to not be okay. You've got what it takes to deal with it. And if you feel like you don't, you've got the strength to ask for help, because we've got more starting lines ahead of us. And there's room in that starting line for everyone. Thank you for listening to episode 109. Like I said, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And I look forward to meeting you on the next starting line. Thank you so much for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast today. And if you haven't already subscribed or set yourself as a follower to the podcast, I really hope you would. And make sure you check out the show notes, because in those show notes, you're going to find a link to Coach Bennett's newsletter and all the social media sites I'm on, like Instagram and Threads and Cameo and Blue Sky and nope, not on that one anymore. So all the ones I am on, you're going to find it in the show notes, so check that out as well. And as always, thank you again for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast. Until next time, you keep taking care of yourself and each other.